Three Grots in a Vox is intended for a mature audience. This means there will be crude language and discussions of adult themes, especially if we're talking about tactical marines or Gabriel's Seth. Viewer discretion is not only advised but encouraged. All opinions are our own and often given for humorous purposes. Any advice is given largely for entertainment purposes and would probably be ignored. But if you do learn something useful, count it as a win.
I want to be the very best, like no one ever was. Certainly not John, because he started playing Black Templars.
Once.
Yeah, and didn't cop any flack for that whatsoever in the slightest.
Didn't you lose as well?
I did lose,
so
yeah.
you meta-chased for a single game and got your ass handed to you by someone you've beaten loads of times as Blood Angels.
I did. I mean, I was learning.
And then came back to Blood Angels and promptly kicked the shit out of the tower.
Yeah, that happened.
We learnt here.
We learned that what, Blood Angels are the very best.
Of course they are. So today I've got the Icelandic white ale again. I'll say again, last time I had something slightly different.
Icelandic white ale. How
This
does
is
that?
really good.
Yeah?
Yeah.
If you say so. I popped
Quite hard to
downstairs
get,
and
but I do
got
like
a
it.
half-open bottle of port because I feel like having something.
What,
to
just
drink
swigging out of the bottle?
Yeah, that's exactly my plan. Yeah. There's a big LARP on this weekend in the UK called Empire, and a load of my mates are off at it, and I'm not. So
you're just going to sit around getting drunk instead?
No, not entirely. But I will miss them because they are very good friends. Bit of background to everybody. A week ago today, from the day this episode is being filmed, was the day the big balance slate update was released.
And fucked up our plans.
And fucked up a lot. Well, it didn't really fuck up plans, just kind of informed them and gave a new sort of lease on life, which was nice. So that was the day when Harlequin's got a gentle little love tap on the nose, and Custodes got nerfed into the fucking ground, and nobody wants them ever again because they're all shit now.
All the Terminators are, anyway.
Orcs got hit pretty hard as well, I think.
Orcs got a weird nerf, didn't they? Because it was like a quiet side nerf. It wasn't so much they got nerfed as everybody else got buffed to be better against Orcs.
Yeah. And Tau's indirect fire is a joke.
Everybody's indirect fire got nerfed into the ground, and the Space Marines got a buff.
Much bigger buff than it sounds on paper, I must say.
It's a huge buff. And it's not just Space Marines, it's most of the power armoured factions. Apart from Custodes, because they got
nobody expected and was probably badly needed.
Nobody expected the Armour of Contempt.
Nobody expected a buff to make people's armies play better. No, actually, nobody did expect that. Let's be fair.
Well, so it's an interesting one, isn't it? And we really focus. I'm going to focus more on a bit more context. We're going to be looking at Blood Angels today and how it's improved them and how it's changed them and how it's changed up our lists. But there is an argument to be made that actually, although Space Marines got this buff, the other armies that got this buff got a lot more out of it than we did.
You mean Grey Knights or
Death
Sisters?
Genuinely scary.
Yep.
Sisters have had a huge buff because their low toughness means they rely on the armor a little bit more.
Thousand Suns pretty tasty.
Thousand Suns against damage 1 weapons, you might as well not bother.
And of course, we've had this recent thing from GW saying what they're going to do to the basic stat line of your average Chaos Space Marine as well.
So they're getting, they're looking pretty tasty.
Yeah.
Grey Knights. People seem to be sleeping on Grey Knights a little bit, but they've got a lot of 2-up armor saves that benefited from this. They've got incredibly, ridiculously undercosted troops choices.
The troop choices
benefit significantly from this.
Are undercosted, but I actually think the Dread Knights took a pretty bad hit here because
they didn't take a hit; they just didn't get it. So it means that they are still amazing. They were just as amazing as they always were.
But most of their guns were -1 or -2, right?
Yeah, but they're not about the gun; they're about the giant fuck-off sword, and that doesn't care.
They did a lot of damage with that Strength 8 -2 gun, and they got it wasn't an insignificant number of shots they got from those guns previously.
No, it's a good gun.
It still will be. It'll just be a little bit less harmful to armies that benefit from the Armour of Contempt.
Yeah.
Still amazing at killing everything else, and it can still stamp you in melee.
Yeah,
Very, very
and
effectively.
If you're that big of a problem, then I'll just mortal wound you into the ground.
Yeah. That ridiculous librarian of brokenness with the mortal wounds is now even better.
True.
Yeah, and like I said, the strike teams have really had a massive buff because they've all got power swords or force weapons. They only cost 22 points a model.
So this is what, half the armies in the game?
Yeah. So
maybe
we need to think about this in a little bit of context of, yes, we got a big old boost, big old boost, but so did a lot of other people. And that means that the matchups in some areas have gotten harder as well as in other areas gotten easier. So yeah, we're better into Tau, we're better into, well, a lot of armies. But against things like Death Guard, who were really good against us to begin with, I would argue in some ways we've gotten worse because they've got more of a benefit from this than we did.
Maybe in relative terms, you might be right.
So I think we're in a much stronger position than we were before. I would rate us at the moment after the massive nerf Custodes got. If I was going to a tournament tomorrow, I'd be taking my Blood Angels and not my Custodes.
Yeah, I mean,
It might be because I made 1,000 Terminators for the Custodes and I love them, but now they're all shit. But also because I genuinely think, in a lot of ways, the Blood Angels are more competitive than my Custodes at the moment.
well, I mean, I think that's fair to say, but I think a single point on AP change for the Blood Angels doesn't fix a lot of our problems. Yes,
No.
it helps us out a ton, but there's still a lot of inherent problems with Blood Angels. I still think Custodes are pretty decent.
They're not bad, but they're much more in line with the other Space Marines and things like that now.
Yeah, I think the people that probably got hit hardest, honestly, are going to be Tau. They're going to really.
People who are relying on that indirect fire Tau, certainly, they've been hit really hard.
Even up close, there's a lot of tools that Marine players have that can on these new rules can just make it like very, very difficult for Tau, I think.
Well, going back specifically to Blood Angels, what problems do you think are still in play that this has not addressed or this has not done anything to address?
I think all of our named characters, like most of our named characters comparatively, are probably still too expensive points-wise. Most of our armor still has problems where, like, we saw it last week with a Land Raider where, like, 5 Poxwalkers charge a Land Raider, and the Land Raider's stuck in combat, can't fall back and shoot. So, yes, it can shoot into combat, but it's 8-point Poxwalkers. Like, a Land Raider should never be stuck in combat against 8-point Poxwalkers. It's just stupid.
These are not big endemic problems with Blood Angels, though.
Well, no, but like it would be the same thing if you wanted to run the quote-unquote Ball Predator, right? Like,
I think the Ball Predator would chew through 8-point Poxwalkers a bit quicker than
a Land Raider. I mean, maybe.
Cannons.
It's still, I think it's still an inherent problem with like armor. Dreadnoughts eclipse armor, and
yeah, they do. They still do. That hasn't changed.
Yeah, so it's always going to make more sense to take Dreadnoughts over armor, and the named characters really need somebody to look at them that in line with other characters. Like Brett has that. Brett charges me with like a 70-point orc that does 5 mortal wounds on the charge. I'm like, that's pretty nice.
Okay, so units and unit types within the army you think are underpowered, and it's not a real problem with the army per se.
I think so.
I mean,
it's
top level strategic problem with what Blood Angels can and can't do.
Yeah, no, I don't have any problems with that. I just think it's somebody needs to update some of the rules for some of the individual models to just bring them in line with the power creep that's happened through this edition.
Fair enough.
Okay. Well, we've got a loose plan for this episode.
Yep.
I'm not saying we've scripted it, but there's a little bit more of a loose plan than last time. So hopefully we'll stay vaguely on topic and it won't just be 2 hours of wandering around.
I've really loved having no plan and just wandering wherever our talk would take us. It was brilliant.
The worst episode I've ever done.
Looking forward to doing it. John's up there just laughing at the pair of us.
Yeah. I quite enjoyed doing no script, but I just like to talk about shit,
It's fine. It's fine.
Anyway, Tony wants some structure.
Okay, so we're going to start with HQ. what do we think is now good or is good? And is there anything that sort of dropped down? You know, if anybody doesn't want a bit of context, this is the old tier list we did from about a year ago. There's been a lot of new codexes since then. There's been a lot of new changes and things like that as well. So these are a little bit out of date, but I thought it'd be a good starting point for us.
Yeah, and we're not redoing the tier list at this point.
No, we might do if Codex 2.0 comes out, but until then, it's still a base. It's a starting point.
So those two things at the top, they're probably not at the top anymore. I wouldn't say they were must-takes in every single list anymore.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I'd move both the Tech Marine and the Sanguinary Priest probably into A.
Yeah. I wouldn't say anything particularly is A, really.
Or is S, do you mean? Or
is S, sorry. Yeah, no, I meant.
No, the captain on the bike is surely an S. Maybe the chaplain on the bike.
Time, and then it was like, well, but neither of us take him.
Yeah, you don't see him in every list.
You see him in a lot of competitive lists.
You see Dante in a lot of competitive lists. I would argue you see more Dante than you see your captain on a bike.
Well, not in my list show, you don't, but maybe that's because
your list.
People want
your list show, which is watched by your viewers who listen to what you say about what the best army is.
You
judge the armies based on your criteria.
You have a very specific idea of what a strategic Blood Angels list is, John, and you rate it based on your criteria for what you like to play.
Which is fine.
Yeah.
All right, well, I mean, we could disagree. I think the bike captain is the only S.
Fair.
But
when time comes to redo this, I'm sure we can have a nice long
argument
over the course of an episode just about HQs.
And I would bump Mephiston up from the bottom of A somewhere to the middle of A because he did go down 15 points and he did now ignore AP -1 and he is toughness 5 already. So against small arms fire now, Mephiston's pretty darn resilient with a 2-up ignoring AP1 and a 5-up shrug and a toughness 5.
Well, instead of looking at the top, let's look at the bottom. Has any of the stuff in C been improved to a point in which you would actively want to take any of it in a list? No. Really?
Not even a little bit.
Nah, not me.
No.
I'll tell you what, there is a couple that I would say are maybe a bit better than they were.
Yeah.
And that's mostly your 2-up save ones. So like Asterath has gotten a little bit better.
Okay.
Because he gets a bit more of a buff. I'd say your Terminator characters have gotten a little bit better. Again, 2-up save is a nice little
they still lack mobility. 5-inch move.
They still lack mobility, but they are better than they were.
Yeah, okay.
The chaplain is about where he was, but if you give him the armor Indomitus, he's got top save, then he's a bit better.
Yeah. So bike chaplain build being resilient as all hell for
slightly less points than John's captain.
Angel Sacrifice is still exceptionally good.
Yeah, the only other thing, the Gravis captain that we don't have on here, the one that they announced.
Yeah, because he came out after we made this, didn't he?
Yeah.
But he's technically in addition to the data slate for the one that's on there that's sort of like halfway through B.
Yeah. I think he's
got a bit better, isn't he?
He's probably a high B now. Yeah, because you could mastercraft his gauntlet, and you can get like, I think I worked out that you can do 31 damage in a turn if you mastercraft his gauntlet, because you can get like 11 attacks or something. Well, I mean, you could reserve him.
Here's an interesting question:
8-inch rerollable charge. I mean, he'll.
What do we think about librarians? Do we think they're less useful than we did? Yeah, we've been banging on about it. Love Null Zone. Psychic Fortress is really useful. Do we think that they've lost a bit of importance or use now than they had? Psychic
Fortress has lost importance for sure. And if you go by the poll that I had up on the Blood Angels community, Null Zone is it's got like 500 votes. Null Zone got 29%. Unleash Rage got 71%. So it feels like a lot of people maybe are just stepping away from Null Zone. I still think Null Zone is good. I just think it's
I'm still running it. I still like it.
I just think it's a big commitment, and that's the problem with it. It's a big commitment on something that can be denied.
Yeah, it's not that reliable to have an effect at any given turn, really.
Yeah, so
maybe we should vote him a bit lower these days than he perhaps was before. Maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
Okay, should we shuffle on then?
We should, because
troops choices. Any changes here? We had infiltrators at the top. Then John made another video telling us that we were wrong, and actually incursors were better.
So since then, I changed my mind, and I'd have put incursors up better. And now I changed my mind back again, and I'm putting infiltrators still as extremely important.
See, I'm not changeable at all, and I said they were extremely important at the time, and they're still extremely important.
Yeah.
In fact, I think they're more important now we've got all these crisis suits dropping down and nuking things.
I don't think you can stop that with infiltrators.
No, but you can make it a lot harder because they can't get close enough to be in fusion range and things like that.
It makes the screen a little bit more effective.
Sure. I mean, I guess we'll have to disagree. I prefer the incursors over the infiltrators now.
Even with the only 1 AP, which into Marine armies means they've got no AP, which makes them basically Reavers that are troops choices.
True, but I actually think the strength of the incursors is the forward deployment and surviving in those forward deployment positions.
But aren't they slightly... So they've got the same rule as the infiltrators, but who also have forward deployment.
Ultimately, they're
and have a bigger deployment
points
thing.
Which is
they're 10 points cheaper.
15 points cheaper. Yeah, that's what pushes me to them. Points or so.
I'm only being facetious. I think they're pretty even.
But if you want to be more resilient, infiltrators have the option for the Helix Gauntlet that incursors don't, which will add to their resilience.
True, but I mean, you can't rule out incursors just because
No, definitely not.
Bad against Marines. I guess they're still -1 AP against everything else, right?
So if we're talking about bonuses and benefits, tactical Marines are now the same increased resilience as everybody else, and they're still the cheapest troops options we got.
Mm-hmm.
Would you take 5 bare bones tax?
No, they're still shit.
No, I'm sorry. I still think they're absolutely trash. Blood Angels units with 1 attack does not do it for me.
So what do you take troops for ultimately?
But so that I can have lots of CP in the battalion.
What purpose do they serve in your list?
If to deploy, deploy teleport homers, or retrieve and act one data, charge an enemy's backfield objective, and forward deploy. That's why I take troops.
Okay.
And that's maybe changed. Before I would be zoning things out, but we don't really get any points for zoning people out. I mean, sure, if you've got a super heavy tank and you want to protect it or something, yeah, zone people out. But the fact that there's now that Tau railgun that does 12 damage, no invulnerable save.
So you want to use them more offensively and actually have them have some teeth and do some damage.
Yeah, and I think that's one way that I've had a lot of success with assault intercessors, in that if you reserve assault intercessors for 1 CP, you can still reserve a couple of attack bikes or land speeder as well.
Through strategic reserves.
And I think assault intercessors coming down 8 inches away or 9 inches away with an 8-inch charge from the enemy's backfield objective, if that's possible, and you make that charge, you don't even need to win the combat. You've got 5 OBSEC troops on their objective. Chances are they might not even have OBSEC troops back there. They might just have some random thing holding it. That swing alone can actually win you games.
Would you want to put a power sword on the sergeant for 5 points then?
If I had 5 points, I would, yeah.
Not a bad shout. Because remember, you can double his fight again with them as well, which is always nice. Yeah, the problem with tactical Marines for me is they've got no teeth. And if you want to give them teeth by putting a melee weapon in there, which gets 1 less attack than everybody else's, or if you want to put them some teeth by giving them a big gun, well, then they become really expensive and they stop being cheap. And I just don't see a hole for them. To be fair, I don't really see a hole for intercessors either. I think they're slightly better in melee, which is a helpful thing.
Intercessors and also bolt rifle put out
a decent amount of fire.
15 shots and they can fire twice.
Yeah, and they've not been affected negatively by Armour of Contempt, the same as tactical Marines haven't in that respect. But they get a lot more shots, and if you put a power weapon on the sergeant there, then you got more attacks with it.
Sorry.
Go on.
Well, I've been saying for a while, I think tactical Marines should be 15 points per model. Do either of you guys disagree with that? I would consider them at 15 points per model. I can't get at 18, it's 75.
Yeah.
Rather than 90, which they are now, because they're 18 at the moment. They're only 1 point cheaper than an assault intercessor. The assault intercessor gets 1 more attack and gets a chainsword.
So, yeah.
So essentially 2 more attacks, right?
15? Yeah, I'll take them for 15. To be honest, I'd take, if they dropped off a wound and said they're 1 wound each, but you can have them for 14, I'll take them.
Yeah, I mean, that's
Because
the
I don't
argument.
think
At that point, they start filling in the tactical hole that scouts did when they were troops, which is
Yeah.
the dirt cheap, less
they are
resilient.
your line infantry that you fill your army with to
They're,
start
they're,
with. and
they're
then-
troops taxed. They're slot fillers.
Yeah. But then you also, that means that when you start putting heavy weapons or exciting power weapons or whatever on them, they still stay relatively affordable. And you can start putting tactical squads in rhinos to go and do things. Whereas at the moment, you put a tactical squad in a rhino, you're looking at a really expensive, not very effective unit.
I'm in agreement in that I want my troops to be actually contributing to the battle.
And I just don't think tactical marines do.
I'm bored now of just having slot fillers.
Yeah.
Not interesting to me anymore.
Yeah, the only thing you can do with a tactical squad is throw a las cannon on it and pop someone at 40 inches each turn and maybe get once per game you do some
Maybe put
damage.
someone at 40 inches is the problem.
Yeah, it's just they've fallen out. I go back to what we said up in the first slide. There are units in this codex.
5
they're
tanks and a rhino, drive forwards, resilient, pop the rhino, pop out 5 cheap obsec bodies.
Yeah, but they're not killing anything, so then it's just a case
And they're not
of,
even that resilient. And
They're as
it's an
resilient
incredibly
as
expensive
3
choice.
save an armor of contempt, 2 wounds.
and they're a little bit more. But I really think this is one of the data sheets that just like if you know, it's a sign of the times. It needs someone to actually if you want tactical marines to be ever shown in competitive play, they need something onto their data sheet.
Okay, so slight segue here then. Horus Heresy is coming back for a new edition in the next few months. Workshop are going to be popping out a whole bunch of new Firstborn tactical kits, new tanks, new characters, the works. Hopefully, from their point of view, many people will be buying a load more what are Firstborn Marines. They might want them to be used more in 40k. They might not. They might want more of a difference between the two. Do you think that they might do something to improve tacticals off the back of that? Or improve Firstborn off the back of people buying Firstborn models for Horus Heresy?
I don't. I think they'll try and keep them separate.
And have it be the Firstborn game versus the Primaris game?
Yeah. They've made a big push to... If you look at Forgeworld, do you remember that Forgeworld used to release loads and loads of kits? The rules used to be interesting and complex and all these sort of crazy stuff and that, which is a lot of the old Horus Heresy stuff coming forward. And with 9th edition, they brought the Forgeworld stuff in-house and ripped a lot of the complexity and interesting stuff out of it. And then they've made a big push to sort of this kind of new game of Horus Heresy. And I think they're going to try and... we've seen hints that it might be a third game, as it were. I know Lord of the Rings is still there, but nobody plays that. So I think they're going to push the tactical marines and all that stuff into Horus Heresy and keep Primaris as the primary space marines for 40k.
Maybe.
Might be wrong. I hope I'm wrong, but it wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, I got nothing to say. I hate that as well, but yeah.
Yeah, they're going to want us to buy a box set for Horus Heresy and a box set for 40k. They're not going to want us to buy one and use it for both.
Yeah, okay, fair point. Well made. All right, that's
Let's move
troops.
on. Elites, any big changes here?
Well, Dreadnoughts obviously are a lot more tasty this week than they were last week.
And they were pretty tasty last week.
Yeah. Everything on this page got a huge boost with the exception of Storm Shield Vanguard Vets, which did not get the boost, and Blade Guard Veterans did not get the same boost as everybody else.
And Thunderhammer Storm Shield Terminators
Terminators.
didn't either, although if you mix up the squad, then the other half of the squad did.
Yeah.
So that's not such a big deal.
I don't think
Agents are still shit.
I'm on board with Sanguinius now. I think he can move up a bit.
He's in A already.
Yeah, I think he could probably be much higher up in A now. Why not? He's one of the few things there on A that you see that's now on a 1-up save, I guess. Most
Yeah, I
other
suppose so.
things would be on a 3-up save, and the math says that if you have a 2-up save, then Armour of Contempt actually gives you 100% more value against AP -1 than if you have a 3-up save, and then 50% more value against AP -2. So models that have a 2-up save basically get the most benefit from the Armour of Contempt rule.
And by that same token, I would bring both sets of Terminators up a bit. And I would also bring the Ironclad above the Death Company Dreadnought now.
Yeah, because what, toughness
It's
8?
just that much more tougher.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fair to say. I think the only thing that some people have said that they think aggressors might be quite good now. I
thought about that.
They're probably
I
better,
spent
but
a fair bit of time thinking about that.
They do have that stratagem that can put them on the +1 to their save against 1 damage, and I used that this week against Tau. It wasn't on aggressors, but it was on a Gravis unit. It was eradicators, so it was like my eradicators are on a 3-up save. They're in cover, so they're on a 2-up save. We pay unyielding on the face of the foe, so we're on a 1-up save. We then ignore -1 AP. So basically, what happened is like he's shooting me at fire warriors at close range with -2, and I'm still saving on 2s.
Thing is, your problem with aggressors is still the same problem you had with them before. How are you walking them in? Are you delivering them? What are you going to do with them when they get there?
They're too slow. They don't have much. The offensive output against other power armored armies has actually been hit quite hard because they used to be quite a shooter unit.
Yeah, they're great at holding a point, but then again, lots of other units like Terminators, like Blade Guard, like Centurions could be great at holding a point. And when they get there, the only punch that an aggressor's unit got is their power fists.
It's a lot of power fist attacks, though. I think it would be 15, 16 power fists because the sergeant gets 6.
To hit, though. Why would you want that when you don't have to have it?
Is it -1 to hit for aggressors?
Yes, it is. Yeah,
power fists.
But they are -3, so I mean, factor that in.
They
I
had
guess.
like some fancy bolt version of it.
They don't, unfortunately. No,
they're not like Centurions who don't suffer it.
I think aggressors could probably move from C to B. I mean, probably low B.
What about Centurions then? We have talked about them before.
They have the same the slowness problem, and I mean that's why I land a Land Raider to see how they would work out of a Land Raider. And there's definitely something to say. Like, I mean, it was a 400-point Blight Lord Terminator squad that my Centurions charged, and he lived with 1 Blight Lord Terminator. So there is definitely something to be said. But like Centurions, anything they charge, they will probably delete. The problem is they're so slow, and who that I think you cripple yourself by bringing a Land Raider to try and get them across the battlefield, and that's the only vehicle they can go in.
From my point of view, I'm more convinced than ever that Blood Angel's strength lies tied inherently to mobility, and anything that you bring that isn't mobile has to have a damn good reason not to be mobile.
I actually think that we will see the emergence of people running 3 10-man squads of Sanguinary Guard again, so I think it's probably only a matter of time before Sanguinary Guard get some sort of nerf, because Games Workshop will think it's too strong.
I definitely think they've had a big old buff.
I don't think so. I think their offensive nature has not changed, and that's the reason why they weren't being taken at 3x10 in winning lists. So, I mean, people might like to take them at that, but I don't think that'll be a winning recipe. Not on its own.
No, I think it'll be very strong. And I think a combination of like
it'll run into something like Death Guard, which is your perennial hate, and they'll just fall apart.
Potentially. What about the swords versus axes debate?
Still think mixed squads is the way forward. I wouldn't.
I'm back solidly on the swords train. Totally.
I play.
I'm happy wounding on 3s against toughness 5. And that's fine.
I'm winning on 4s against anything else.
Anything higher than that, that's fine.
I mean, I suppose it depends if orc buggies are not going to be in the meta anymore, because they were nightmarish for wounding on 4s basically, and -1 damage because strength 8 because they're ramshackle. So if orc vehicles are not so prevalent, then maybe swords will be better.
But
we'll see.
Axes are only hitting a strength 7 anyway, so they've still got their ramshackle ability coming through.
Sure, which is halving the damage, but you're wounding them at least you're wounding them a bit more reliably, right?
Yeah, I suppose so.
On strength 5 + 1? No, sorry, strength 6 + 1 with axes. So
3s.
So 3s, yeah.
And then remember, some of the orc vehicles.
You say they're toughness 7?
No, toughness 6 on the.
Okay.
So, and what are the Custodes bikes at the moment? Are they 6 or 5? Forget.
6.
Pardon?
I think they're 6.
Yeah, if they're 6, then that's horrific for swords, I guess. But
nobody's bothered about Custodes anymore. They're shit.
Well, you're hitting them a strength 4. They're not as good as they were because they can't do all your turning off rerolls and transhuman and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. But I mean, those bikes are still nightmarish.
I think we're going to see a bit less, but we're getting off topic.
Another question.
Yep.
Death Company and hammers. Still a thing?
Yeah.
Why?
There's still a lot of wounds with things with 3 wounds that want to get hammered.
-2.
Custodes are still about, and being able to kill one with each one that goes through is pretty nice.
Mm-hmm.
And the Custodes we do see, I know I'm saying that it's going to be really heavily leaning into Custodian Garb with 3 wounds, because they're the only obsec choice you've got anymore.
I think
everything else. If you look actually at the really competitive list before, they were leaning really heavily into big squads of guard that hammers are really good into because they don't get Armour of Contempt. So just putting them onto their 4-up invuln, and then if you one they fail is a dead guy. So they're very good for that. They're still very good into battle suits and crisis suits. I think going to be even more prevalent, just not with their indirect fire, but leaning heavily into fusion and plasma. Again, great thing to be smacking with thunder hammers. So against Marines, yeah, the AP -2 is taking a little bit of a hit, but against everything else, I think that they're important. Against -1 damage, they're still important. So I don't think they've really taken a hit at all, to be honest. I think they're just as good as they ever were. In fact, the Death Company carrying them as now slightly better because they're a bit tougher.
Yeah, they probably balance out for the weakerness that they have in turn 1 and 2 before Assault Doctrine kicks in. You'll at least have 1 or 2 more Death Company guys alive, I would hope.
Yeah.
I guess
you could always put them in Assault for 2 CP or string them back to a priest or something.
Yeah, and I just think Red Rampage is going to be much like it's a stratagem that I've literally never used. People were surprised when I said I've literally never used Red Rampage. Well, I guess on turn 3 or 4, I guess whichever one you're going to make more charges in against Marines, I guess you just play Red Rampage, and then every 6 goes back to the additional EP, which
could come in handy.
Yeah, I mean, I actually think Red Rampage is going to be pretty useful.
I genuinely don't think I've ever used it.
Well, it's going to be very useful with Lightning Claws, right? Because, Lightning Claws, you essentially reroll all your missed wounds. So every reroll that goes...
You don't have to reroll the missed wounds. You can reroll any wounds that are less than a 6 if you want to.
True.
That was the old Chapter Master wording. That's what made it so powerful, wasn't it?
So, yeah, I mean, if you're fighting into other Marines and you're wounding on 3s, probably, because you're Strength 4, so you're going to be rerolling all your 1s and 2s, then you're going to get some more 6s, and yeah, it's going to be okay, I think.
Yeah.
This may be one of the reasons why a Null Zone might be more... Because, typically against, Death Guard, people are right, you really want Null Zone. Well, I mean, if you're into Mortarion now, with a Thunderhammer, Mortarion's only going to get -1 from the Thunderhammer, is that right? Because he's going to ignore 1 AP, so he's saving on a 4 anyway, so at that point, what the fuck is Null Zone going to do for you? Nothing. Unless you pay the 2 CP to put them into...
Null Zone's still going to be good for thinking back. Null Zone was really best when you had your big squad of Sanguinary Guard with the swords and you Null Zoned them, and that's not changed.
And if you really want to, Null Zone will remove the durability of Harlequins. Just gone.
And Tail Battle Suits. There's still a lot of those shields and that running around. They've got a lot of 4-up invuns. Custodes are still all 4-up invuns, so your swords and those is going to make a difference.
I'm very worried that this focus on the increased armor of Marines is blinding people to invulnerable saves of non-Marines out there.
Yeah.
But I think people are also focused on the increased armor and they think that there's no reason to have Storm Shields anymore. Right? I haven't dropped my Vanguard Veteran squad with Storm Shields. I haven't dropping my Terminator squad with Storm Shields. I think that people will make lists going into Marines with a shitload of AP minus. I already seen Andrew's Tau list where he's running 2 plasmas on every model now, on every battle suit.
Little melt blasters all over the place.
To try and get all those -4 shots. Well, the second, if he runs that against me, I'll just be right, I'll just take it on my Storm Shields. That, I'm not going to drop the Storm Shields. I think it's probably going to be important for Blood Angels players to still have some squads that have Storm Shields, because you can't put everything into obscuring positions on some levels. Something's going to be out of the cover. Well, if something out of the cover has a Storm Shield, they can just tank
People coming into this are going to spec like they used to. You go back a few years, and if you were going to a tournament, a decent shout used to be bring a lot of stuff that would kill Marine armor, because you're going to run into a lot of things that have got Marine armor. So you'd bring a lot of plasma and things like that. And lately we've seen people moving more to AP -1, AP -2. But I think they're going to start going back to those higher AP shots.
Either minimal AP or high AP, yeah.
Yeah. So I think maybe you're right, and Storm Shields haven't really lost their place at all.
They've lost their place on characters, right?
Yeah.
There's 0 point to take them on a character anymore, I think.
Depending on the points cost, which for most characters was higher than
I'll take it on a lieutenant.
Oh, sure, yeah, okay. Can they even take Storm Shields?
No, they can't.
Can't they? Yes, they can.
No, they can't.
Yes, they can.
No, they can't.
But
there's that one lieutenant from the Indomitus box that had a Storm Shield.
Exactly. So, suck it, Mark.
That's what you get when they make 15 different data slates for the same character, rather than
unnecessary number of different options, and so unnecessarily complicated as well.
Yeah.
You can only take the Storm Shield if you take this weapon.
But fucking options all over the place.
Anyway, so elites, we've been. Do you remember how we were going to try and go really fast through this?
We are going fast.
We are.
Next slide.
Next slide.
There's tons of elites.
There is tons of elites.
It's like as big
when
as
we were talking
two
about
of the
tier
categories put
listing
together.
the custodes in one episode, I pointed out to John that the entire custodes army has less things than the elites for Space Marines.
Brilliant.
Ridiculous. Fast attack then. Any changes?
Yep. Probably. Maybe. I still think Inceptors are really good.
I do, but I think the bolters have lost a little bit. I like them because they were cheap, and I do run them sometimes. But I think that I'm maybe leaning slightly more towards plasma than I was before.
I think the Storm Speeders are all still shit. I think Outriders are still shit. I think Scout Bikes are still shit. I think a case can be made for Assault Marines with melter guns now.
Shaky.
I think
suppressors. Attack now.
Suppressors are even more shit than they were before.
Attack bikes
and land speeders have both had a little bit of a buff.
Yeah, but also not just attack bikes with multi-metas, like that one that's at the top of B, attack bikes with swords, or attack bikes with a melee weapon. I think that they are going to be interesting.
There isn't an attack
You
mean just normal bikes?
Normal Space Marine bikers?
Are they not called attack bikes? I've never owned the models.
So the attack bike is a trike.
It's the trike with the melta side. I mean,
that's right. Or the melter or heavy weapon. Yeah.
I think because Outriders are useless.
They're not useless. They're just really expensive.
Well, they are useless because you only get them in scores of 3. So the second you lose one, you're not getting engaged on all fronts. So the whole point of the model, where you've got a fast-moving bike squad to go into a quarter, can't.
They don't do enough damage either, do they? I always find that I charge in and I kill a couple of things, and then I'm now stuck in melee, and they all die.
So
they're just rubbish.
I think firstborn bikers, they could, toughness 5, ignoring 1 AP. Only like 35 points per model, I think.
I am on the firstborn biker train.
I think they're better. I think they are a big winner here, probably. I mean, I think attack bikes with multi-meltas are going to be a big winner as well, because their biggest problem was,
they're our cheapest source of mobile melter firepower.
Yeah, I've always liked them
because you can do engage.
True, but the one thing I like is
this is called Jungle Trip. I bought it because I like the cam.
That's reasonable.
A squad of assault intercessors and 2 bikes fit in strategic reserve for 1 CP. So you've got a squad of assault intercessors come in, challenge any objective on the board and obsec it. You've got 2 bikes that you bring in 9 inches away from the enemy. Ideally, you bring them in 9 inches away from their characters, make them the closest target, and now you've got 2 3+ hits. And if you do hit them, you're within half range of the multi-melta. So you're just gambling. You're just saying, can your character survive 2 D6 plus 2 multi-melta shots?
For what, 60 points?
60 points, yeah. Maybe they can, maybe they can't. I know at a friggin' GT, I brought them in right next to that. Who is it, like the Tsar from Dark Eldar, and literally shot his ass off the table with a couple of good hits, and it was very satisfying.
That's fair.
So I think it's if you get 60 points at the end of the list, you could do a lot worse than an attack bite now.
I think you could. Yeah, you've always been able to. I think we stopped running them for a little while, but they didn't get any worse. They just weren't they couldn't get engaged anymore, so we all sort of ditched them.
And we're also getting an unpopular result or response. Sorry, I'd drop the land speeder down.
I think the Land Speeder is good because it combos with Whirlwind.
Does that really matter?
I like the fact that it's quicker than bikes. It's a bit more durable than bikes. It can get engaged on its own.
Yeah,
It doesn't need its friends. It's still pretty cheap.
Well, if you're taking a mobile multi-melter platform, then why would you not do it for as few points as possible?
Because you can get engaged with it.
You can do more than one thing if you bring it for the slightly more, whereas if you bring the cheaper one, it can only do one thing.
If you use it to get engaged, then it's not exactly resilient. Anybody who wants to kill it will kill it pretty easily.
True, but I mean, it can draw firepower from other things.
First, I'm not so worried. Yeah.
Yeah, if you get those 2 victory points, might win you the game, and you still can do the same assassination you could with a tap bike.
It's got the same amount of firepower. It's slightly more durable. It's slightly faster. It's got fly. Yeah, I think.
Maybe. I appreciate your points. I just don't agree with them.
Fair enough.
I've never been a big fan of the Tornado. I know we put it in B, and I didn't like it then. I think it's too expensive.
Oh, it's too expensive for sure.
And now with the slight nerf to AP1 weapons, it's heavy flamer and it's assault cannon. I think it's even worse than it was.
I actually think if you go back, if we look at it now, I don't like Inceptors anymore. The fact that they kill their own models still has a big problem for me.
With the plasma, yeah.
Why, every other chapter now is getting do a mortal wound to yourself, like battle suits, do a mortal wound to yourself. Why the fuck do we have our guy just dies and he costs 60 fucking points? Like, it's just ridiculous. Or even the plasma pistols, like Space Marine plasma needs change to do a mortal wound to yourself. The kill yourself is just stupid. No one else does that.
If you run Mephiston and you shoot his plasma pistol and you don't shoot it on high power, you're a massive wuss and you're doing it wrong.
I think Inceptors are still as important as they were because as a source of mobile, high AP firepower, that is invaluable against other Marine chapters.
Sure, I mean, I can be on board with that. I just think that they need to fix that rule.
Fair enough.
I don't run them because they kill themselves as plasma.
Yeah.
I did run them as bolters, but I think they might have gotten a little bit worse.
If I'm running them, then I'm running them with the source of rerolls.
Sure, but I guess my point is I don't think we should have to spend another 150 points to have somebody there.
And how many times have you re-rolled a 1 into a 1?
Plenty.
Yeah. I did that with my anti-air missile the other day. I finally got to shoot my Derideo Dreadnought's anti-air missile at a flyer, and I had +1 to hit from the Tech Marine, and I rolled a 1 to hit, and I re-rolled it into a 1. The one time I got to shoot the anti-air weapon at an aircraft.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about 18 shots coming out from those plasmas, without re-rolls, the average just says that you'll roll 3 ones. There's 3 models in the squad, so you're going to wipe your whole squad on average every time you shoot them at high power. What is that? Like, show me another unit in 40k that's going to kill 180 points of your own models when you shoot them.
Yeah. It's not great, is it?
No. Space Marine Codex 2.0. If they update Plasma on its own, that would be something.
Right, come on, let's move on.
Is Plasma just a dated rule from like 2nd edition or some shit?
Yeah, basically. But even then, you used to take an armor save or die.
No, it's better now than it was because now you get the option of firing it normal or firing it supercharged, which you never used to get.
But at least you used to get a save.
Yeah.
Webs.
Okay, heavy support.
The Whirlwind has moved from S tier into, oh my god, this is definitely S tier.
You reckon? There's been a lot of arguments in the Discord over the last few days.
I've noticed that. People are saying they don't want to run the Whirlwind anymore.
Yeah. And all of this, I think, is coming from, in particular, Jap Carpster saying, I don't like Whirlwinds. I'll never run them.
Yeah, but we always have that.
Well, sure. So what happens when you're going to charge Tau Battlesuits? You're just going to lose... I did it without the Whirlwind and lost 5 of my 7 Sangregard on Overwatch. So, I mean, if you're fine losing...
charge from out of line of sight, but if you're against a really good opponent, they're not going to let you charge from out of line of sight.
Yeah.
I think I'd agree with bumping it down to A on the basis that it's powerful, but it's not every single list ever powerful.
Its shooting has taken a hit, and it wasn't great before.
Shooting was not. It's not why it doesn't kill anything anyway. That's what I've always argued.
No, but it
Backfield
is now
holding is great. It's
objectively
still
worse
does what
than
it
it was.
does. Its utility hasn't changed.
Yeah. The only reason to take it is to make a single 4-up roll from 2d6 and enemy suppressed. That's the only reason to take it.
Yeah.
So no, I still think it's S, 100%. I can't.
I'm with Mark. I'll bump it down to an A now.
If you're gonna, people are now thinking that you can go and run 3 squads of 10 Sanguinary Guard, for example. How are you doing that if you don't have the Whirlwind? Because like, if you're gonna run into anything that's solid at Overwatch, they're just gonna annihilate them. A knight with some sort of like heavy flamer or something. That's
Plus
5
you're
guys
making
dead.
multiple charges in a turn. Your enemy's going to interrupt on at least one of them, and you're going to risk them hitting you back depending on who they are and what order you're fighting. So fight last adds a little bit of safety.
They are still very
managing
good.
that.
I'm not dropping mine.
Yeah, I agree. It's really useful and powerful. I just don't consider it a must-take in the list anymore.
I do, but I guess that's fine.
But anyway, so movers in the other direction. Anything got better than it was? I'm going to come in with the Vindicator.
Christ.
I like the Vindicator. It's got hazard stripes.
I mean,
why is
statistically the Vindicator is better because it has a 2-up save.
2-up save.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which means it's now tougher than it was, and I don't think it was bad before.
The other contentious one that is actually... It has actually made the final for the votes of the worst Primaris model ever, and that is the Fire Strike turret. It is better now, because it has the 2-up save.
It is better, but I wouldn't say it was good.
No, but I mean...
What
It hits on 2s with the last talons. What are the last talons' weapon stats?
They're just...
Strength 8, strength 9?
Unfortunately, the last talon is only 24 inches. If they'd been 36 inches, it might have been viable. And the last talon's like 40 points. It's way too expensive. But if you wanted to run a couple of them with autocannons, 48-inch autocannons...
minus 3d6, heavy 4. But you're right, 24 inches isn't great. But then again, you don't really need loads. 24 covers a good chunk of the board. I agree it would be nice if they were 36.
If they were 36, I could see them being viable. But yeah, I think, like we talk about backfield holding, if you just want to throw one of these turrets somewhere in the backfield with a good firing arc, 48 inches, it's just an autocannon that will just pepper the enemy for a bunch of turns. Pretty survivable now on a 2-up ignoring AP.
90 points. It's chunky.
What about the Gladiators? Because they've had a few points dropped since we wrote this. And we put one of them in B already.
That would be the Lancer.
How many points is the Lancer now?
The Lancer's on my radar. I'm interested in the Lancer.
It's dropped a bit. It's down to 180 or so.
You may or may not have noticed the poll that I put up on our community page a few days ago as the date we're recording and filming this, which would be long range, high strength, high AP, high damage firepower. And the Lancer absolutely fits that bill.
It does.
Heavy 2, hitting on 2s, really long range, strength 9, doing reliable damage at D3 plus 3.
It's one of the few Space Marine weapons that's
65 points, I think it was.
D3 plus 3, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it has gotten cheaper. And it is still fairly tough.
Yeah.
Toughness 8.
Toughness 8.
Save.
And how many points did you say it's actually now?
I want to say 165.
It's gotten a lot cheaper.
It's 165. It's tempting. Let me just double check what that is, because I'm fairly sure that's what it was when I was looking it up the other day. Lancer.
It's definitely better than it was.
165. Assuming the Games Workshop app is accurate, which is always an assumption in and of itself. But,
and what else has it got? A Stormbolter or something? Or has it got anything?
Yeah, it's got 2 Stormbolters, which you don't care about, but they're better than a kick in the cock. So, sure. It's big. It's a big hull to hide. I mean, when you think about it, it's kind of our comparison to a hammerhead or a prism cannon, a fire prism.
Yeah, it's similar physically
sized. With a long range, doing a shit ton of damage at high strength.
Doesn't do quite as much damage, but it's slightly tougher than something like Hammerhead.
Yeah.
Yeah, 2 shots, heavy 2, isn't it? And then +1 on the main cannon.
On 2s.
Yeah.
So
you don't need to run Tech Marine or anything like that. Yeah, I mean, it's fine. I don't know if I'd move it into an A tier, but I think it's fine.
No, I wouldn't. I'm happy where it is, but it's definitely in the conversation for me, at least at the moment, which is
I'm not
interesting.
sold on this beer, just so you know.
I'm shocked, I tell you.
The first one was excellent. This one, I don't know what it tastes like. It's got a real sort of like undercurrent of piss.
Fair enough. Thoroughly shocked. Thunderfire Cannon goes down at least the bracket.
I think
I would put it in the bin
I think Eradicators are now A.
because they're a bit tougher.
Because
It's not just that they're tougher, it's also that they're tougher and they're melter, which
Yeah,
is
we
an
need-
anti-meta choice right now.
they're tougher, they can get cover like bikes can't, they can give +1 on the save, they can transhuman. Like Eradicators can.
Yeah,
I think
I'd agree with
they're
that.
mobile as well with the regular
On a
rifles.
similar-ish note, I'd probably bump Hellblasters up to be part of the conversation.
Yeah, I think they've had a bit of a buff. Again, they're tougher, and that high AP is more valuable than it was before.
It's interesting that I'm not considering resilience as much here, because everything's been increased in resilience, to be
Exactly, so
fair.
everything's
It's
gone.
now the firepower and offensive ability.
Yeah. It's that high
Go
AP
alongside
that
it.
we probably do need. I'm rating. I put Eliminators, and I pushed really hard last time to put them in A, and I'm rating them even higher now. Since we did this, they've had a points drop, which makes them 75 points a squad. The changes to indirect fire, the changes to their armor, putting them on a ridiculous amount of save in cover.
Ridiculous amount of saving cover, except against Tau, right? Because
Yeah,
of the
but
target
Except
lock.
against things that ignore cover, which
But
is
even
not
against
just
those
Tau.
things, they've got the other bonus to their armor anyway. So
I'd agree that they're good, but I'm happy with them where they are.
yeah,
They're
I'm
very
not
good
putting
and
them in
very
S tier, but
useful.
I think they're very good.
Yeah, you can't move them then. They can't get better than they are. They're
Exactly. So, but I do think they are better than they were when we made this.
They're certainly more interesting. How would you run them? Would you run them 3 snipers? Would you run them sniper, move, shoot, move?
Yeah, sniper.
Would you run them las fusel or las fusel?
I don't
move,
like
shoot,
las
move?
fusels. A lot of people really like them. I understand it's nice having that damage 3 and the high AP now, as we've been talking about,
Which is exactly where I'm getting to. Yeah,
is quite valuable. But I also really like the fact that 75 points a squad and you can move, shoot, move them if you run them with the a couple of snipers and things. So it depends what you want to use them for. If you want more sources of high AP, the las fusels are great. But I use them as sacrificial units more than anything else that can just be in the way and be annoyingly difficult to shift for a 75 point
you could
unit.
do a lot worse than have them as objective holders who can move off, shoot something, move back again.
Yeah,
You do a lot worse.
so that's what I like them for. So the fact of making them more expensive would actually take away from that. So I stick to
Fair
the
enough.
snipers, to be honest.
They don't get that much more expensive. What's another fusel? Like 5 or 10 points?
10 points to give the 2 non-sergeant characters fusels. I actually really like them with the last fusels.
They are good.
Fusel
I
is an
just
extra
don't like
5
it.
points per fusel, which is
It's
not,
all right.
not bad. Not bad at all. You lose the versatility of the sniper rifle, which can be good at taking out characters, and it's got frag rounds if you want to like shoot poxhawks or something. But
Like I say, I just want them as cheap as possible. That's what I want from them.
yeah, it's
I
fair.
don't expect them to kill anything. I just expect them to be annoying to get rid of.
There's definitely stock in eliminators. Give them that. That's fair.
Any other changes do we think here? I said the Vindicator, and I said it was a bit of a joke, but I actually genuinely think that it is better than it was. That 2-up save, it is toughness 8. It is not that many points. It's a bit swingy in its damage output, but it's the sort of thing that you can stick in the way, and it's a massive roadblock.
If you want to take Vindicators and you want to be serious, you still want to take more than one because
Yeah,
you
you take
eliminate
at least a couple.
swinginess by having more dice, basically.
So, but yeah, I think they've improved a little bit than where they were.
Since I
Land
put
Raider
this,
Crusaders maybe a little bit better.
since I put this in the community post, I want to raise it here for consideration anyway. 4 las cannon Predator Annihilator.
Too many points.
I can't think of anything worse, honestly.
Too many points and very swingy on the damage.
It's just the D6 on the
Ballistic
damage.
skill 3, 4 las cannon shots. I mean, a 1d6 is swingy. 4d6 or 3d6 is not as swingy.
It's just, yeah,
Only assuming you wound.
if it was D3 plus 3, I'd be all over
Strength
it.
9.
Yeah, it
You're
needs,
wounding most things on 3s. If
So
not
you're going to
2s.
hit with what, 2 or 3 hits. You're going to wound with a third of that. So you're
You're
going to
going to
wound
hit with 3 or 4 hits.
All right, so let's say we hit with 3 out of the 4 shots.
Okay.
Okay, which is slightly better than average, but we'll do it because it makes the maths easier. That means we're going to get 2 of them go through. That means we can do about 6 damage. On average, 6 or 7 damage.
Okay.
And it's a tank that costs how many points?
So same as the Lancer, I think, 165-ish.
So it's 165 points. It's weaker than the Lancer defensively. It's slower than the Lancer.
It's smaller and easier to hide.
It is slightly. Yeah, I don't think it's as good. I don't think it's not going to do any more damage than it is, and it's easier to kill.
Yeah, I just think D3 plus 3 is so much better than D6.
So
Because
it's
they're not-
170 points, so it's 5 points more
So it's
expensive
more
than the Lancer.
than
Yeah, they're not even in the same ballpark for me. D6 damage could just fuck off, honestly.
I don't mind it. It's like we said, if you've got enough of it,
Yeah.
but I don't think the
Multiple.
Predator Annihilator's enough of it.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I mean, I could get on board with taking 3 Vindicators because you're just, you're having a bit of fun then. You've got the strength 10 and you're having a bit of like a splattering of D6. But like the Predator, I think, is just so expensive for what you get. It's got a worse save, it's got a worse toughness, and anytime you're going to need a high damage roll, yourself, you're going to roll like a 2 or a 3. It's just.
I know the Vindicator's got the same problem, but if you think average rolls on the Vindicator means it's going to get the same number of shots as the las cannon Predator for 30 points less, and it's tougher.
And it's more survivable, and it's a strength 10 weapon, so it's easier to wound.
Well, it's not really.
Well, it is against toughness 5.
Nothing is toughness 8. Nothing is higher than toughness 8 that you're going to be top fighting, right?
No,
So how is strength 10 really that much better than strength 9?
because it wounds things at toughness 5 on 2s. And there's a lot of toughness 5 things running around.
Yeah, there is.
Okay, fair point.
Custody bikes.
Well, no, they're toughness 6, so it wouldn't help. But,
Oh, okay.
but your standard foot custodies are all toughness 5. Your orcs are all toughness 5.
All these Gravis Marines people are going to be running now are toughness
All these
5.
Gravis running Marines that are running around at toughness 5.
Okay.
There's plenty of it running around.
Plus, I guess the one advantage of the Vindicator as well is its blast, so.
Yeah,
Sometimes.
which is an advantage and a disadvantage, admittedly. But at the same time, it's got
Do
a
nicely
fuck-off
against
rope
big
shield,
Tau crisis suits with drones. Yeah.
and it's
Yeah.
got hazard stripes on it. And I've never seen a Vindicator with hazard stripes.
Fun fact, I didn't realise this. You do not include the drones when you're shooting blast weapons for purpose of number of models. Do you know that?
Where does it say that?
Did you not?
Apparently, Andrew said it says it in the codex, unless he's
Well, I
lying
don't
to
know
me.
that it does, but I will double check that because I've got the
Yeah, I'm
codex.
not sure about
Because
that.
I was like,
I
that's
think you
5
don't-
crisis suits plus a load
again.
of drones.
You
That'll
don't
be...
count them for purposes of morale, and
But you
you
do
can't
count
count
them
them
for purposes
for
of
claiming
blast.
things. I'm
Oh, maybe.
pretty sure.
They haven't got any exemption from it. Part of the unit now. It says that specifically.
Maybe.
So yeah, it's Andrew playing cheaty points again, mate.
Maybe. I'll have to
Yeah,
check that.
ask him 10 about his strength 10 lightning locks next time he raises that one.
Okay.
Unless I'm proven wrong, in which case I'll have to
Exactly. Yeah,
apologise
we
to
could
Andrew.
be completely wrong. I'm just trying to find the.
Sorry, Andrew, but in general, we tend to be right on rules more often than you do. On balance. Anyway,
Yeah, it specifically says here, artificial helpers. Drone models are ignored for purposes of lookout, sir. Determining this unit's starting strength and whether it is below half strength. Determining this unit's toughness characteristic.
Okay.
It also contains models without drone characteristics. It has no specific thing exempting it from blast.
okay. If anybody thinks we're wrong about this, please point it out to us in the comments or
Yeah,
otherwise, because I
You
would
can
like
show
to
it because
know.
I haven't got the book, so maybe it's in the paper book and not on the app, so I could be wrong because I haven't got the book handy. But I don't think I am.
Might look it up after this. We'll see how it goes. Anyway,
Yeah.
Anything else of heavy worth mention? I don't really think so. I think we've
I don't
covered all
think
the
so
salient
either.
points.
Like I say, Land Ready Crusader, I think is slightly better than it was, but it's still got all the same problems it did before.
Yeah.
It's just a little bit tougher, which is fine. Why not?
John?
Yeah, I think it's better.
Yeah, I mean, I still think armor needs something to bring it on comparable
Yeah, it
with
definitely does,
dreadnoughts, but maybe we'll see what happens in Space Marine 2.0.
Moving on.
Anything with a veil kill keyword ignores 2 points of AP rather than 1.
Who knows?
Okay,
Fuck knows. All right. Yes.
flyers and transports. Any changes here?
No.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Go on.
Impulsors got slightly better
Why?
because you don't need to pay the 15 points for the shield dome because they would need to hit you with -4.
Does that make you more likely to include one in one of your lists?
Me personally, no, but I do think it makes them better. I mean, I tried to run impulsors with and without the dome. I guess running one naked, if you want to keep it super cheap, running one naked essentially without the dome is a little bit better.
It's
Maybe
better
it's
than
not.
it was, but I still don't think it's good.
I think their stock in conjunction with Hellblasters makes them more interesting than they were previously, but I'm not too sure if that's
I think the
worth it
Storm
or not.
Talon's a bit worse than it was before, because all of its guns are AP -1.
Hey, you can give it last cannons.
All right, well, it's good gun. It's twin assault cannon, which is the big gun.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think it's slightly worse than it was before. Not that I think it was. I don't think it really changed things overall, really. There.
I'm happy with the land speed of Storm staying with it was. It's still got a lot of tactical use.
Yep. Razorbacks, they're still fine. If you've got anything you'd ever want to put in one.
Yeah.
And they're expensive if you're not putting things in them.
Yeah.
Rhino's about where it was. I don't think there's any real changes, to be honest.
Nah, it's all about right to me, really.
Yeah.
Maybe bring drop pods down to C.
Why?
Because they're not doing anything. I think when we put this together, I underestimated how easy it is to screen drop pods out from being useful.
Yeah, I found that with Dreadnought drop pods, especially because they're even bigger, that actually sometimes getting them on the field can be a right pain in the ass.
You don't have the firepower to drop them down and make them useful. You're dropping them down somewhere to either transport something or to sit in a place and be a resilient-ish vehicle on an objective. But if there's a point of interest like that, there's a good chance your opponent can screen you out from dropping there. And if your Blood Angels, I mean, Flesh Tearers aside, if your Blood Angels, you've probably got jump packs anyway. Probably.
Yeah, that's fair.
Okay, let's move on then. Last little section. I've not bothered to put the tier list because we did this in 2 and it's a bit of a faff. So I've just blomped more or less all of Forgeworld. There's a couple of omissions from there. One of the Sicarans is missing. And I'm sure there's something else that's gone off sale or something like that. But really, I've just sort of put this there to kind of spark people's minds. Is there anything here that we think is better than it was or worse than it was?
Yes.
Go on.
The Thunderhawk is so good now.
It is better than it was. It's got 2 up save, toughness 8, and loads of AP. Meets all the criteria.
So on my vote for the best long-range, high-strength, high AP, high-damage firepower, the Vindicator Laser Destroyer right in the middle there is currently top in the bill.
Yeah, we liked him when we talked about him. I still like him now.
Mm-hmm.
They lose the 2 up armor save, which I think is a bit mean. But they're pretty great anyway.
Yeah.
They've got a lot of firepower. They've got a lot of heavy damage. The thing I don't really like about them is they're still hitting on 3s.
Yeah. It's not such a big deal if you still run a Tech Marine like I do, but it is a big deal if you don't.
At which point, that's an extra 100 points for what they give. Yeah.
Sicarans, I think, have gotten better. I think the one with the weird rocket launcher thing has gotten a bit worse with the nerfs to anti to indirect fire because that's all it does. It's not like the Whirlwind with its extra utility in that.
Yeah, but you never see it anyway, really. Same with the Scorpius.
Yeah, but I do think that the Amiga with the big old plasma cannons of Doom might be a little bit better than it was. It's got 2 up save. It's still pretty tough. It's pretty fast, and it's got a lot of AP, so I like that.
It's heavy 6, not heavy D6, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, makes it a lot better.
All the Dreadnoughts are obvious
good.
winners. I think there's... I want to think there's a case for the Deredio with its potential range firepower support.
You can think there's a case, but you'd be wrong.
You reckon?
It's problem. There's the same problem as it always had. If it was 180 points and included all the guns, you'd take it. But the fact the missiles are 25 points and not very good, and the guns, all the good guns, are really expensive. It's a 240 point or so model.
With the Martial Legacy. Yeah, that's fair enough.
It's so expensive that it's just not improved. The Leviathan's gotten a little bit better with its 2-up save, but it's still overcosted. The Astraeus, we were talking about
I'm not sure
Astraeus
the
a little while
Leviathan's
ago.
overcosted. I'm thinking it's all right now.
240
260-ish, I want to say.
Yeah.
Well, Leviathan Dreadnought.
Yeah,
It's 220 now.
But it's still toughness 7. It's got a 2-up save.
Yeah.
And a 5-up invuln. If it kept its 4-up invuln, or its toughness 8, then I'd say yeah. But
you need to hit it with -4 now to make it worse than a 4-up save. I think, like I said, I think all the things on a 2-up are a bigger winner than the things on a 3-up.
Yeah,
I think the Leviathan Dreadnought is totally. I think it's good now. I think it was decent before. I think it's good now.
I think it was all right before. We put it in A before, I think.
Yeah.
And I think it's still in A, but maybe a little bit higher up in it.
Yeah.
You
were talking about the Astraeus. Yeah, what do you think of the Astraeus now?
I don't think it was that bad before. The main gun has taken a little bit of a hit because I think it's only AP -2. I could be wrong.
Correct.
So that's taken a little bit of a hit, but it's big, it's tough, and it's now gotten a bit tougher. It had that ginormous points drop relatively recently.
Yeah, and I think I would remove its twin las fusils or whatever they're called, and I would put You can put 2 macro plasma cannons, the cannon that the Redemptor Dreadnought has on it. So I mean, 2 of them on a 600-point tank. The 30 wounds, you're not really worried about overcharging it. You can get, I think this, on average, you'll get 19 3-damage shots out of this per turn.
Yeah.
Yes, it is 600 points, but I mean, think how many. What would you have to run to get 19 3-damage shots? You know, we talk about eliminators at 85 points. Well, for 600 points, you could have, I don't know how many eliminators, 85 times 5 or 6. You know, you're still a long way short of 19 shots, and
you'll be capped at 9 because of data sheets and nothing else.
Well, sure. So relatively speaking, an Astraeus with a Tech Marine is probably pretty decent now.
Yeah.
You want to run?
I think they're all right. I don't know how high I'd rate them, but I think for super heavies, I'd probably put them. If I'm being vaguely sensible, I'd say they're the best super heavy we can take at the moment.
Yeah, I think it's better than the Falchion, honestly. Yeah, I mean, if I'll run one if you give me the £254 for getting off Forgeworld.
Okay. What about the Terax pattern drill? I think that's improved a little bit. It was pretty good before.
Yeah,
it's a little bit tougher now, so it's better.
Yeah,
I know we've said that a few times. And the melter's useful as well with that melter array.
Yeah, it's nice.
Flyers haven't changed at all, really.
Flyers haven't really changed at all. I joke about Thunderhawk being better. Yeah, that one's given a bit more of a bonus than some of the other stuff, but it's still where it was, really. The Land Raiders, again, had a bit of a bonus, but they've still got the same problem. Same with the Mastodon. It's tough as all hell, but it's incredibly expensive as well. So I think that's probably not really changed either. So yeah, I don't
points to Rapier Laser Destroyer these days.
Points to Rapier. Can you remember what slot it's in?
Sorry, it's heavy.
Heavy.
75 points for a Rapier Carrier plus 35 for a Laser Destroyer. So 110.
That's still too many points, aren't they?
110 for hitting on 3s, heavy 3, 36-inch strength 10, -4, D3 plus 3 damage. So hits fucking hard.
Yeah, it's just not got the defensive profile.
No.
Because it needs line of sight.
Plus 5-3. Yeah, it absolutely does.
So you have to put it in the open and then it gets shot down.
Yeah, if you're considering that, you might as well take some Melter attack bikes for half the points cost.
I mean, the Mastodon, I'm just looking at it, has actually had quite a bit of, because it's toughness 9. It's one of the only toughness 9 vehicles in the game. So it's toughness 9 with a 2-up armor save. Now it ignores the first pip of AP. And it's got void shields as well.
It's 800 points and you'll never fit it in the deployment zone. I mean, if you can get around
points,
that.
You'll never fit it in the deployment zone. But at the same time, because the way it works, you could put it horizontally in your deployment zone, so it did fit. And then on turn 1, just turn it round the other way. You've just gained about 30 inches of movement just by rotating it on a spot.
Yes.
So, you know, you can use it for a turn 2 charge very easily. because you'd rotate it and then take the guys out of it.
So ultimately, nothing really in Forgeworld has changed in role or importance or significance, except maybe the Leviathan.
Leviathan, yes. So the Dreadnought's got a little bit of a buff, and the Astraeus has had a bit of a buff.
Your Volcon is
hang on.
still...
The Sicarans, I think, are better now than they were. Especially the Amiga. I'm really looking at one of those at the moment.
Yeah, Relic Contempt is still tasty with the Volcons.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm really looking at one of those.
Not as must-take as it was, but it's still very tasty.
And the undefeated Falchion has got
it's
better
still undefeated.
As well. Yeah, and it's got better.
And it's got better.
It doesn't need a friggin' Psyker to babysit it anymore and give it a 5-up.
No. So what we're saying here is the only vehicle on this page that's never been beaten is now even better for no extra cost.
Yeah.
When you're bringing it out of retirement, John?
I mean...
Never, otherwise it'll get beaten and then I can't make that joke anymore.
I mean, maybe I should just bring it out against Andrew's Tower and see how all his battlesuits do against that. Every single shot would be a dead battlesuit, basically.
Yeah.
I do love it as a vehicle.
And he'd get first turn and kill it.
He's done that before and still lost the game.
Yeah, that's true. I remember that game. That was a fun game.
Oh, have you noticed I've put the new plastic Spartan at the top?
I did notice that, yeah.
Because
I think I'll buy one of those.
I am hoping it does come in the box for Horus Heresy, and then I will be definitely getting it.
Well, if the Horus Heresy box is like 250 quid, then maybe.
Yeah, how much was a Spartan before? Must have been above 100.
It was over 100 quid.
Yeah.
So this to me says that this box is going to be like a 200 quid box to start.
Yeah, I mean that Spartan in plastic is going to be like Bane Blade level price.
Yeah, it's going to be 100 quid for the tank.
Imperial Knight level pricing. Yeah.
So 200 quid box, I reckon. I am tempted to buy the box and just paint the entire lot as one Legion and just have a big box of Blood Angels.
I'm fairly sure you will not be alone in doing that.
That is the benefit of it being sort of Legion agnostic.
Yeah, it's fair. I see many people doing that, like they did with Deptus Titanicus, just painting all the Titans to be the same army.
Just get a whole army then in the box, don't you?
Yeah, pretty much. Anything else we can talk about Forgeworld?
I think probably we just about covered it, haven't we? I
think so. Yeah.
Thereabouts.
Right. So we're moving on then. And after all this discussion, and after looking at these things, we have got some lists. So these are the lists that we have written based on largely the changes, but also kind of what we're thinking is our competitive list at the moment. Yeah.
I think
I say that like great of a pinch of salt because
obviously nobody really knows the impact this has all had on the meta. It's been out for a week. There have not been a huge amount of games, but these are the lists that we've written for the purpose of this video, based on the changes that the Armour of Contempt and Balanced Data Slate has had, that we think stand a chance of doing fairly well.
Okay, so I think the first list is the Blood Angel Commanders list. Over 3 pages because he sent it to me in some ridiculous format. But did you like I found a picture of your bike captain to use?
It did. Where the hell did you find that?
Well, I used it for like the chapter command video we made.
Well, cool. Okay. Well, I mean, I still like the bike captain. You guys know this.
Yep.
I also like starting a lot of CP. That's why I have Mephiston over some sort of generic librarian with Psychic Mastery.
You'd like the person who used to start on 4 or 5 CP and just sucked it up and was really happy with it. So where's this whole I like to start with loads of CP come from? That's a big change in philosophy for you over the last few months, year or so.
It has. I think it's probably changed. It's probably just to deal with the codex creep. We need more CP to ping things up. And also, I pretty much always put stuff in strategic reserve. Always the land speeder. Always the assault intercessors. Unless there's a really clear reason that I don't need them in strategic reserve.
So that's sort of the CP2 cost, which is a sort of artificial cost that this doesn't show. Okay.
So I think if I was running Null Zone, I was going to be paying 1 CP to my librarian to go up, and then potentially before I was running an extra Relic Contemptor Dreadnought, so that's another CP. So
shall I flit to the next page then?
Go for it. Yeah. So Mephiston is there mainly he's more there to do Unleash Rage than anything else, and then I feel like I need one Dreadnought. And I don't have the list right yet, but I played Drukhari a few weeks back, and I don't have... I was more focused on multi-metas, and I felt like I didn't have enough... Multi-metas are really ineffectual against Raiders. You know Raiders, they've got a 4-up save, 5-up invulnerable save. So really the way to pop Raiders is a lot of -1 AP fire. I don't run a lot of -1 AP fire. Sanguinary Guard aren't going to do it either, because Raiders are like higher toughness, so Sanguinary Guard are wounding on 5, so the best a squad of Sanguinary Guard is going to do is a couple of wounds off a Raider. So I guess the Relic Contemptors there, probably 2 Cyclone Missiles and a Volcon to try and open up a Raider. It seems like a reach. But I was at a tournament where I had 2 Redemptors, and the 2 Redemptors together couldn't open up the Raider either. So Raiders are they're still in a good spot, I think. So into Drukhari, without the right fire support, I don't know how we open up the Raiders. Someone said you should wrap and trap Drukhari. Well, I don't run big enough squads to wrap and trap Raiders. I mean, they're big model. You would need a 10-man squad, really, to get right round the Raiders. So Drukhari are a bit of a problem, potentially, for this list. The Ancient for the additional movement. 2 squads of Sanguinary Guard. Previously, I was just running 1, and I was running a larger squad of Van Vets.
And 7 and 6, is it? Okay.
Yeah. I was running 8-man squad of Van Vets before, and then I was running more Thunderhammers and stuff in the Vanguard Veteran squad as well. Like it was a very expensive. I think the Vanguard Veteran squad was close to like 290 points, and the second Dreadnought. So it's like I've dropped a Dreadnought for more Sanguinary Guard because I do think they've got a lot of value out of their 2+ save. And I dropped a bunch of Vanguard Veterans with Thunderhammers, which are obviously very expensive. Go and hit my last slide. I've kept the Land Speeder because it combos with the Whirlwind. We've taken a squad of Eradicators. I do think Eradicators are really strong now. Against 1 damage weapons, if they're in cover, they're almost impervious. I mean, unless you're going to hit them with a bunch of like -3 or -4, which,
they might, but then that's not going into your Sanguinary Guard, so...
Yeah, so I think Eradicators... I'm really close to dropping that Dreadnought and just throwing in... If I drop the Dreadnought, I have 10 CP as well, and throwing in 3 attack bikes as a squad. I think the big thing that... What used to kill my attack bikes was... They didn't have that good a save, a 3-up with no invulnerable save, and I used to play against Death Guard a lot, and what you do is you just mortar the shit out that I couldn't hide the attack bikes, because I think the mortar range on the Plague Burst Crawlers is like 48 inches, and they're obviously strength 8, -2, 2 damage, and the -2 instantly put those attack bikes onto 5s, and 3 of them, just mortaring the attack bikes, pretty much anywhere the attack bikes try to hide, it would decimate the squad in turn 1, basically. And people know how much damage those multi-melt attack bikes can do. They can get in half range really easy because of the 14-inch move and get a lot of damage out of the multi-meltas. So that was my biggest problem with attack bikes, is those fucking Plague Burst Crawlers with the -2 indirect fire. And there's also a strat which makes Plague Burst Crawlers do like 3 damage per shot as well, one of the mortars. So if that's gone, and Tau indirect fire is also gone, I think in the next few weeks I'm probably going to maybe just try dropping the Dreadnought and run multi-meltas. Again, it's going to be really inefficient against killing Raiders, but I guess against other armies...
You still have 6 multi-melta shots, and even then, the 5-up Invern is only going to save them so much.
Yeah, but I guess if you have 3 attack bikes and 3 Eradicators, that's 12 multi-melta, or, I guess the melt rifles are essentially multi-meltas. If you can
And
totally
the Land Speeder
obliterate.
is there, let's pop up a multi-melta shot.
So
very heavily in your melter here.
Against other armies, it's a lot of punch as well, right? So
Against anything elite, this is going to do a lot of damage.
Yeah, so I'm in 2 minds about the Dreadnought. I do think I did say that I think Contemptor Dreadnoughts, they put the Volcons up too many points for my liking. But maybe, I feel like attack bikes are more of a Blood Angels thing than Contemptor Dreadnoughts. They make sense. They spin around, they go fast, like Blood Angels.
It's an interesting one, that, because like Fluffy, we used to be known as the Legion that ran one of the most dreadnoughts because of the extended lifespan of Blood Angels meant that we tended to have a lot of dreadnoughts compared to other legions, which is...
And one attack bike in the end of the game, because you usually always got one left, can easily go sit in the middle of the map, score you oath of the moment points, and just fire off its multi-metal. It's not a bad thing. I love how you scored my list of 3.5. Is that out of 50?
Yes, because I only got one dreadnought.
All right, remind me to score his list when we get to it, Mark.
Fair enough.
Happily. And then the whirlwind. Did I mention the whirlwind?
You didn't,
but
you talked about it.
Need to.
Yeah. Okay.
Let's move on to Mark's list.
Woohoo!
Mephiston better be in this list.
He's not. He is absolutely not.
So in Mephiston, the Lord of Death's list, there isn't Mephiston.
So here I've done something that I've not done in a competitive list in as long as I can remember, really, which is I'm not going battalion. I've gone patrol and vanguard, I think it is, for the huge amount of elites in this one. Largely because I'm tired of troops not doing shit, really, and I want to bring as few of them as possible. So there we go.
Jumping the gun a little bit, it's quite funny because you go back a year and John was running patrol and vanguard, and I was running patrol and vanguard, and you were running battalion. And actually, when we get to my list in a minute, I'm running a battalion now, and John's running a battalion, and you've gone
the other way. There you go.
The other way.
But I am still running Dante, so there you go. What can you say?
And an infiltrator squad.
Indeed. Do you want to just flip through them quickly so people can see what is in the list in general? So
next page then.
This will be the patrol. So what else in the patrol?
No, this is still your first.
You sneaky little man getting the bike squads in there and not mentioning it earlier in the video.
Yeah, funny that. Almost like I said, I was on
I was surprised how many bike squads you're not running a little bit.
I'm running 6 bikes,
Yeah. Sanguinary Ancient again.
Yeah. Rathbal, just as John did there, but with the all-sided spice of Rights of War, because Rights of War on a really highly mobile platform, I feel, is very worthwhile.
I was surprised to see you didn't put anything in your death company. It's just 5 dudes with chainswords.
Yep. I want to mulch stuff with them. I want to mulch many things with huge frequency of attacks at minimal AP, and I want to use other things to do large amounts of damage and large amounts of AP and strength. If I keep the Death Company Marines cheap, then I'm not too worried about what happens to them, and they'll still chuck out 25 to 30 attacks on the charge.
Fair enough. Last page then is your Vanguard detachment.
Indeed. We got the healer, we got the priest, who is solely there for putting other units into Assault Doctrine turn 1. I'd very strongly considered not making him Chief Apothecary and Selfless Healer, but I figured that the value that adds on top of everything else in the list was worthwhile doing so. 2 units for Sanguinary Guard. I'd strongly consider making that a unit of 8 potentially, but 2 units
it's quite nice
one
with a
unit
bit of flexibility, I think.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. Being able to charge them wherever I want, and have that flexibility is useful and nice. The 3 dreads are strictly there for fire support, and they're there for hitting the really big targets. You got the las cannons, you got the dreadnought combat weapons, which will attack at strength 12 or 14,
something like that. Yeah,
-3 AP, -4 in Assault Doctrine, 3 damage flat with their combat weapons, 4 attacks base, 5 on the charge, 6 on the charge in Assault Doctrine.
Yep.
They're going to hurt. They're going to hit on 2s.
They are good. They are very good, actually.
They have a 6-up shrug.
So they'll be hitting a strength 12 in combat.
Yeah, which is pretty nice.
Mm-hmm.
The fact they're hitting on 2s is great. The fact that I can buff one of them to have a captain or lieutenant reroll for a CP is a massive factor in there as well.
Yep.
Because if I wanted to, then I could drop the Inceptors down next to them and have them benefit from that reroll or the reroll to wound. Because that 300-point unit of Plasma Inceptors, essentially they'll benefit from Dante's rerolls to hit. Maybe they'll benefit from rerolls to wound from the Dreadnought or
that is a big unit,
and they will nuke the fuck out of something. they will absolutely kill what they look at. And they might lose a model or two in doing so. But hey, guess what? I've got a Selfless Priest, Sanguinary Priest with Jump Pack nearby. So I'm not really that bothered about it.
Fair enough.
I want to be able to shoot things off objectives. I want to have the ability to move things up and take the objectives. The 2 units of 3 Firstborn bikes are there as throwaway first or second turn units to drive forwards 14 inches, maybe 20 inches, just sit on an objective and have 9 wounds at toughness 5, sitting on an objective going, come on, come at me. Baiting out a charge or baiting out somebody coming in to engage and take the objective off me. Those bikers are what I would have used troops for in the past.
Makes sense.
That's exactly what they're there for. Nothing else.
So, yeah, I gave you a 9.67. I think I was ranking them out of 10.
Because I got 3 dreadnoughts.
Because you got 3 dreadnoughts.
Yeah. No Tech Marine because I don't feel they need them. There's 3 of them in there. There's redundancy. They're hitting on 2s.
They're a bit different. They're already hitting on 2s. You've got loads of them. You're not worried that much about having to heal up a specific target. So I don't think the Tech Marine's really that necessary, even though you have got plenty of vehicles. So I don't think I would run a Tech Marine.
On the one hand, I'm lacking overwhelming melee punch, but on the other hand, the 3 Vendreads hit hard. The Sangard hit hard.
They are good in combat.
Yeah.
They're not. You're basically wounding anything on 2s.
Yeah, the Death Company hit hard. Teeth of Terror on Sanguinary Priest. Dante hits hard. Yeah. Dante's in there because he saves me CP on bumping up something with a relic. He moves fast, he hits hard, he buffs hard.
I was surprised to see Teeth of Terror over something like Armour Indomitus on your Sanguinary Priest.
I don't really think he benefits from making him that much more defensive.
Mm-hmm.
Because either I'm lookout staring him out, at which point he's not getting targeted, or he's in a melee and my opponent can move in and nuke the crap out of him anyway, and whatever defensive buff I give him is not really going to stop him from dying. So I think it's much more interesting to give him Teeth of Terror just to have a bit of extra carry his weight in a fight, essentially.
That seems fair.
John?
Yeah, I think Teeth of Terror is 100% the right choice on that priest. I think people that go defensive on the priest are trying to cover the fact that, like,
he is a bit squashy.
Yeah, but also, like, you know, it's like I placed my priest in a shitty position, so I'm going to try and keep him alive. I think, you know, I think that the priest should hang back to a certain extent and then engage when he's ready to engage. If you're getting engaged on the priest earlier, then I think you put him in a shit position. But
potentially, or you're trying to get him forward to buff a Death Company with Forlorn Flurry and this sort of stuff, which means he's going to have to be at the front of your army to give them, if you want a daisy chain back to him.
I don't love the twin las cannons. I mean, I think you could do the same with just multi-meltas. It's the same number of shots. Yes, it's 1 less strength, but it is +2 damage if you ever get into half range. And you will be trying to get into half range, right? With because you said the dreadnoughts have combat weapons.
You want to walk out the middle, don't you?
Maybe. I appreciate your point. Yeah. The higher range, the hitting on 2s, the strength 9 is why I chose the las cannons over the multi-melters.
I think I would go multi-melter as well, just to save the points that I could spend on something else.
Yeah, you're cheap though. You gotta remember.
But I'm cheap though, and I don't like upgrades.
Yeah, I can.
Multi-melter compared to twin las cannon. Is it half the price? 10 points rather.
I think it's 15 points cheaper. I think it's
5 points a gun. So yeah, you're saving 15 points per thing. So you're saving 45 points if you do that.
You wouldn't have to go all multi-melt. You know, 1 with las cannon or 2 with las cannon.
It saves a lot of points. That's another interceptor, really.
The las cannons adds flexibility for me to having them to just hang back and snipe something at 48-inch range as well, though.
Yeah, that is the one thing about it. Yeah. So, I mean, I guess if you were struggling for points, though, I guess switching out a multi-melta to do some, you know, if you want to put an infernal pistol somewhere or something like that.
I hadn't considered it, but I do appreciate you saying so, because if I did drop the 3 of them to multi-melters, that would save me 45 points, which is not small.
Yeah, it's not a small amount. That's
you would also need to go all of them, right? Like, I think like one of the dreadnoughts is typically going to be further forward. I prefer
having all 3 of them with the same gun for the sort of the overlapping concentration that you get in range of these 3, then you're having a bad day, mate. Kind of.
Yeah, I suppose that's true. Yeah. Yeah.
But then that also overlaps with what the Plasma Exterminators and the Inceptors do. They're meant to be the close range, nuke the shit out of things, firepower, whereas the las cannons on the Dreads can be a more long range firepower. with the ability to wade in with high power melee if I need to.
If they could hurry up and make las cannons D3+3, then I would love this. And I think it's coming. I honestly think it's coming. I don't see how Space Marines could stay at... Why we should have to stay at D6 when every other army now has...
I don't know where I've got it from, but I agree that I feel it's coming.
Yeah. I think it's just coming because every other army got it.
Pretty much.
Maybe.
I mean, except maybe Sisters of Battle?
Or D3+2, frankly. Whatever, yeah.
I'd go, if they wanted to make a difference, because they made a big point about Cognis las cannons are better, sure, give them D3+3 and give normal las cannons D3+2.
Yeah.
Whatever. I'll take that.
Okay.
D3+1 would be a bit of a joke, but D3+2 would be...
Yeah.
Anyway.
So
that's my list. It's based on the idea, as I say, of having minimal troops that do nothing, and have either a lot of low AP attacks or enough high AP, high power attacks, and nothing really in the middle.
Cool. Okay, my one's last then. So this is my current list. It's a bit different to what I've normally run. There's a lot less dreadnoughts in it.
You just poo-pooed the shit out of librarians, and he's in here in New Warlord, is he?
Yeah.
Wow.
Now I've still got Psychic Fortress. I might ditch it, to be honest.
What would you ditch it for? Veil of Time?
Veil of Time, probably, yeah. Now, I like having him as my Warlord because I tend to use him alongside the Sanguinary Guard with Null Zone.
Okay.
And then he gives them the +1 hit for being the Warlord and the Null Zone all in one tidy little package.
Yeah.
I like the chaplain on the bike.
Now that I think about it, Null Zone alongside Sanguinary Guard with their added resilience, not invulnerable save based. Yeah, okay.
And it works. It means that it's a bit of a death ball. It's a little one, but it's a little bit of a death ball. I've got the bike chaplain. I still like him.
He's still exceptional.
He's still exceptional. His Crozius took a little bit of a hit because but then whatever. He's a bit tougher.
He can assault doctrine. He's still tasty. He's still resilient
and he's pretty tough. I've not gone mental with him, loading him up with relics and stuff like that. I could, I suppose, stick Adamantine Mantle or something on there, but I haven't. I think he's tough enough already. I've given him Armour and Dom to make him that one turn for Angel Sacrifice or something. Maybe I'll change that. I don't know. I've bought the Primaris Tech Marine. I've paid for Soul Warden on him. There is still a lot of mortal wounds running around. Grey Knights, I think.
Soul Warden was something I was very strongly tempted to try and fit into my list.
I think Grey Knights are going to be a bit of a menace again. They got knocked out of the meta a bit when Custodes come out because they were so good at killing them.
I think we're going to see a lot of mortal wounds to try and compensate for the armour, so I get that.
I think now they've been knocked back a bit. I think Grey Knights...
I understand NIDS output a bunch of mortal wounds as well.
They can, yeah. So I think Soul Warden's going to pay for itself. I've got a single Incurser squad and I've got 2 Infiltrator squads. I really like Infiltrators, and a couple of Infiltrator squads can zone out a huge chunk of the board for things like Eldar Webway Gates and Tau Crisis Suit bombs. There's a lot of deep strike that's very, very nasty. And if
it'll really mess up Genestealer cults.
You can really zone out a big chunk of the map. And if I really want to, I can put all 3 out in the midfield, spread them right out, and cover most of the board, the middle of the board, with you can't deep strike here, which I really like because it means I get to pick when I stab stuff. Moving on then to the sort of the meat of the army. I've got a little Death Company. It's got 1 Thunderhammer. I still like that. Similar to Mark, it's really for mincing things, but I've got that Thunderhammer in there in case I want to hit something a little bit heavier. And I think having 1 in there, a little bit of versatility, is quite handy.
Fair enough.
I'm running a couple of Redemptors. They went up in points. I'm not that chuffed that they went up in points. I don't think they needed it, but they still do work. With the changes to their armor and that, I think they're a bit more durable than they were. I've got the Macroplasma. That gives me a nice bit of fire support. I've got a Relic Contemptor in there.
And you've got Hazard Stripes.
And I've got Hazard Stripes because that's the way you should be using them. I like a little bit more fire support from the Volkite. I'm not really ready to drop that yet. I really like that. Nice little smattering of fire to take out things like Sisters of Battle, toughness 3 stuff. It's great into things like Harlequins because the mortal wound output and the fact that you're wounding them on 2s is very nice. I've got a Sanguinary Guard. It's 8 strong. There's 3 axes in there. There's 5 swords. I'll kill off whatever because I'm going to take a couple of casualties, and I'll pick which one I don't care about depending on what I'm fighting. And a Terminator Assault Squad, which I noticed, John, was the same as yours. I'm still running 2 Lightning Claws and 3 Thunderhammers. I think it's still valuable. I still want to be able to take those big hits in there. The Lightning Claw guys have got better, but I still really like those Thunderhammers.
On the subject of those, would either of you consider swapping them out for Stormbolter and Chainfist Terminators instead of an Assault Squad?
I've thought about it. I do like the Relic Terminators, but I also do quite like having a couple of Storm Shields.
Yeah, I actually ran the Stormbolter Terminators this week, but yeah, I think it's the wrong call. Because I think maybe it will become the right call once everybody shifts away from bringing insane AP to deal with Marines. I think right now, while everyone's going insane, trying to bring insane AP, then having those Storm Shields is going to be the right call.
Yeah, okay. And I agree with that at the moment.
Fair enough.
And then there's the Whirlwind for the same reason that John's running a Whirlwind. It's nice to have a bit of turning off Overwatch. It's nice. It's rare that I either don't want to put something into fight last and don't want to prevent Overwatch. I'm generally going to want to do at least one of those 2 things. So I think that the Whirlwind pays for itself. And by switching to a battalion, I've got a decent amount of CP to use it with, which I didn't have before when I went more killy. You know, my old list was just, if everything's dead, it can't score any points. And this one, I've tried to build a more resilient list because the killiness has just gotten there. I'm being out-killed. So
sure.
I've tried to build a bit more.
I'll score this list of 50 out of 50 because, one, I'm not an asshole, and 2, this is basically the tournament list that I almost won a GT with. 3 Dreadnoughts, 1 Sanguinary Guard, 1 Terminator Squad, 1 Whirlwind, 3 troops. I had a Chapter Master rather than the Chaplain. I had the Tech Marine. I had the Librarian, and the only other difference is rather than the Death Company, I had the Blade Guard Veterans.
But surely that word almost has got to be worth at least 1 point, which means it's no more than 49.
Yeah, but unlike John, I've brought loads of screening for those deep strikers, and I'm not going to not screen out things that try and. In fact, I've gone maybe you could argue too heavy into the screening out deep strike.
Sure, but yeah, okay, 49 out of 50.
But no, I know I gave myself a 6 for being boring because you're right, it is boring.
It's a good list.
But the thing is, I want to make a point of. I wrote this list before the changes to Armour of Contempt, and then I looked at it and thought, what am I going to change? Probably not. Probably Psychic Fortress.
Yeah, it's very unneeded.
Because I don't think it's made. All it's done is made this same list a bit tougher.
Do you deep strike your Terminators or do you walk them up?
Depends what I'm fighting, to be honest.
I deep strike them in every battle.
It's the same with Sanguinary Guard. I never go for a deep strike charge. I say never. I rarely go for a deep strike charge. I'd much rather drop it in to cover, move it up, and then have a much more reliable charge in turn 3 when I've got the Assault Doctrine. That's why I'm not interested in the Sanguinary Priest either. He never resurrects enough stuff for me to get his money back that way, and I'm not looking for turn 1 charges.
That's fair enough. The benefits from putting something in the Assault Doctrine for turn 1 and 2, as far as I'm concerned, is more dissuading my opponent from getting too close in turns 1 and 2. In that, if you do this, then this can potentially heroic intervene 6 inches into you and hit you. This
Who
can
wants to get spanked by 3 Dreadnoughts and a Sanguinary Guard anyway? It's kind of the logic that I'm going with. That's not to denigrate the point at all. But I'm kind of thinking, well, fuck it, I can kill most things in melee anyway. Or if I can't, an extra attack's not going to make me so I can.
Okay.
And I've got a lot of shooting in this list because there's a lot of things that are very nasty in melee at the moment that I might not want to charge, like a giant unit of Custodian Guard or a big unit of Blight Lords. Well, I'll just plasma the bastards instead.
Yeah, I was thinking a little bit about this. So I guess you've gone null zone in this list, and I did it before when I went to the tournament. My question though is this, right? I run a 7-man squad of Sanguinary Guard. You've got an 8 here, right? So so let's just use my 7. So it's arguably less than your 8. If you've got 7 guys, Sanguinary Guard, they're going to get 4 attacks on the charge. So 7 4s is 28. Yep. So if we have Unleash Rage up, on average out of 28, we should get about 5 6s. So Unleash Rage is essentially, literally, very, very similar to the equivalent of putting them into Assault Doctrine. The only thing I would say about that is, this week when I did it, I actually got 13 6s. So like, at that point it was like, because I was trying to do the math in my head, I was like, should I pay 2 CP to use, adaptive strategy and go in Assault Doctrine on that Sanguinary Guard? Because I was charging a Storm Surge in turn 2 or something, and had Unleash Rage up, and it actually procced 13 extra hits or something. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. So like, people are spending, on Mark's list, 155 points for that Sanguinary Priest. I mean, your name's Mephiston, Mark. Maybe you should just think about, like, because I actually feel the same as Tony now. I feel like it's going to be difficult to get the value out of that priest, because Space Marines just don't die nearly as much as they died before, right? So at that point, would you be better just running
150 points? Are you going to res 5 Sanguinary Guard? No. Are you going to res 3 Centurions? No, I haven't got any.
My question for Mark would be like,
I might res a couple of Plasma Inceptors.
Okay, you've got Plasma Inceptors, but if you didn't have the Plasma Inceptors, then I would argue you might just be better taking Mephiston, and have him just unleash rage your close combat units.
Maybe. I think on the one hand, you're saying you're very impressed with the results you got in Unleash Rage, but on the other hand, earlier this video, you've also said you hate the spikiness and randomness of las cannons and d6 damage and so on. If you have a bad game where you Unleash Rage and you don't roll a single 6 to hit, you're going to be completely off the board the other direction. So
I think
it can spike high, it can spike low.
I think with a squad of Sanguinary Guard, in that they can get +1 to hit, and also they can get full, like, I think we're all running some sort of rerolls. Yeah, we all have full rerolls.
Unleash Rage, does that say unmodified?
It does say unmodified, yes. But I mean, if you are rerolling everything on a big squad of guys, you're going to end up, like, I just think it's enough dice where there's definitely going to be some 6s. And that's before we even factor in the additional attacks from Assault Doctrine. Once that kicks in, then it's just stupid how many 6s you're going to end up with.
If I wasn't interested in healing things and potentially bringing things back and the synergy that provides with the Plasma Inceptors, then I would absolutely drop Selfless Healer. I'd drop the Chief Apothecary upgrade. But I think there's still an argument to keep the Sanguinary Priest in my list.
I think he's still good. You've just got to have a list that benefits from him. My list wouldn't. There's nothing in there that's going to get much out of that. If I really need Assault Doctrine on turn 1 and 2, I can adapt this strategy. I've got loads of CP.
Sure. I think my list was the heaviest in terms of infantry between all of us, though, right?
Yeah.
Is it?
I'm consciously of a point now where I want to put my lists in. I used to be infantry is the be-all and end-all because that gets the most benefit from Bloody Jewel's melee combat and all the chapter-proof buffs that we got and all this kind of jazz. But that makes you vulnerable to the secondary, which is wounds and
no
kill
prisoners,
points in that regard. And if you splash in a vehicle or 2 or 3, then that takes away the power of that secondary, and they're also not going to want to take the kill vehicle secondary. So it's making your opponent's decisions hard on the secondaries they want to take. So I'm very much point of view of mixing vehicles and infantry.
It sounds boring, but I was thinking about secondaries with this list, and there's not enough characters to get assassinate. There's not enough infantry to get grind them down. There's not enough vehicles to go for or get many points out of.
Which is the reason I kept to a hard cap of 3 characters in my list for a similar reason. Yeah.
And that's kind of what I'm trying to build out of this. It's hard-ish to score really high numbers, and it's got lots of things that can do lots of things. And then I haven't got to build. I don't like building around a secondary, because it's like building around oaths. Yeah, I can see the logic, but then you suddenly fight, I don't know, Death Guard or Custodes, someone who's better at holding the middle than you are. and then
You can get
built
points off
around
oaths. It doesn't
secondary you
necessarily
can't
in the
take.
middle, but yeah. No, if taking secondaries, my list is built around the idea of oaths and stranglehold, and then flexibility on a third one based on what I'm facing.
I like Stranglehold. That's an objective I've taken a few times recently.
Stranglehold is really strong these days. Really strong.
So yeah, that's my list. It's boring, but I feel like it does the job.
Yeah.
It's kind of where I was going with that.
I think we're all of a mind in terms of the way we're approaching the game, which is interesting to see. It's just the units we choose and the strategies we choose in executing it, which is good. I like it.
Yeah. Okay, on to important things. It's the glory pile.
What is the glory pile?
Well, this
I'm glad
week
it's still glory pile for second episode in a row. That's or third episode in a row now. Yeah,
fourth now.
Is it fourth?
Yeah, it's been like that since you changed it.
Woohoo!
Okay, so John, what have you been doing?
Failing to finish those Terminators, but I think I will
finish them.
He's still got that fucking Primaris head guy at the back there.
Makes me want to.
I can't not see that. It's just.
If I had an Instagram account, I would post that there. I've been painting some Death Company. I don't know. Well, I think I need more Death Company with hammers, anyways. Options, but I'm gonna go back and finish this Terminator.
Does that edge highlighting drive you mad, or are you happy with it?
Am I happy with it on the model, or
are you happy with doing it?
I mean, it takes me a long time to do, but it feels good when it's done, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't particularly feel
like you've got three very different. It looks like, I'm sure it's just different stages. It looks like you've got three very different colour schemes to your Death Company at the moment.
I think it's the lighting. I think the light is on the right-hand side. So, but yeah, I mean, they will all be the same when they're done. They're just
yeah.
I'm slow at painting, and I'm even slower at painting black.
Terminator's looking good.
We're getting there, aren't they?
Yeah.
I really like those Terminators. I love the models at the best of times, and you've got some really cool special ones dotted in there as well.
Yeah, a few more weeks. We'll get there.
What would it take to get you to rip off the Primaris helmet off that one at the back and replace it with a proper Terminator head?
An Austraeus.
I'm not.
No hesitation on that.
I do actually want to try an Austraeus based on the fact that, like, I think it's
rubbish, but at the same time, I think it's probably the best of the super heavies.
I don't think it's rubbish anymore, honest. I think it's good now.
I haven't tried it out. I will do. Yeah.
No,
let's move on then, I suppose. Mark.
Yeah, I've done fuck all hobby for the last few weeks because I came back from holiday and buried myself in Horizon 2, which is now over and done with because I finished it 2 days ago after 100.
Does that mean you might paint something?
No, but I have been building stuff over the last couple of days, which has made it into the table in front of me rather than the picture up there. So I've built my not night spinner because not night spinners, and I've built my first support weapon of 3. So
cool.
There we go. They'll be building, they'll be painting. Horizon is over and done with for the time being, and now my wife has taken over the PlayStation, and she's now playing Horizon 1 because she likes the idea of being a murder hobo, moving through the world and killing robot dinosaurs, and is really enjoying it. So
I haven't played it yet. I've bought it.
Yeah,
but the first one, I haven't played the second one because I haven't even played the first one yet.
If you like open world games, if you like solid storylines, it's really good. Thoroughly recommend it. Disclaimer: I do work for a video games distributor. I do have a business interest in this game with my work. From my personal point of view, I love this game.
Can I ask you a question about Eldar?
Go for it.
How do you feel about yet another release where literally, what was it?
A few weeks later,
2 or 3 weeks later, the points costs on some of those models went up 40%. How?
So those Harlequins models that went up, they were fucking bullshit ridiculous. Yeah, let's be fair. They really utterly deserved the points hike that they got. Absolutely.
I guess my question is, how did they get that so wrong?
That is a good question.
I'll tell you what, and I'm going to defend Harlequins here for a minute. Now, when I got because I've got the Eldar Codex as well, and I sat down, I thought, you know what would be cool? A Harlequins list. Now, I wasn't writing with any kind of meta or complex things in mind. I just thought, I'm going to sit down and write a 2,000 point list because I don't know, I was on the shitter or something and I was bored. Do you know how hard it is to write a Harlequin's list without spamming something?
Yeah.
And the only thing you can spam, because of rule of 3, really, is troops choices and their transports.
Yeah.
You end up with shitloads of them just by the fact you haven't got any other options.
So there are less Harlequin units than there are fucking troops choices for the Blood Angel Codex.
Yeah, when you're at that point, what else are you going to bring?
Yeah, it's fair.
So I don't feel that bad. I do think that the points increase was warranted, maybe not quite as high, but at the same time, I also kind of feel for the Harlequins players who really haven't got any choices apart from bringing troops and maybe their transport to carry the troops, because otherwise they're going to just end up with a field of 50,000 checks to pay.
I'm more annoyed philosophically about the nerfs to indirect fire and the effect that's had on the Eldar list, but at the same time, I'm not annoyed about it because indirect fire is a bullshit mechanic in making for a fun and balanced.
I think for a game point of view, the indirect fire nerf
for a modern game, you have to have artillery that fires remotely and can't see things. I mean, it'd be stupid not to in a game with guns and spaceships and stuff. But from an actual enjoying the game point of view, powerful indirect fire is not good.
Anything that takes away agency or skill from your opponent, I'm not a fan of.
Yeah.
From a purely mechanical.
I'm still having a little bit of it in my Eldar list, but
but it's not nearly as effective, and I think that's probably a good thing. Yeah.
Does that answer?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. It pisses me off that GW are writing codices that are not balanced, that need this kind of change after launch.
Yeah, I think that's the thing that would upset me. If I'd spent a couple of $100 on these models and they go up 40% to a point, not only do they just go up 40%, they go up to a point where like there's not even any point running them, and just like I could have just shoved my money down the toilet.
Either someone's made a policy change to write them more powerful to get more sales, or to just out of general principle write more powerful codices every single time, which is okay. You guys do what you're gonna do. The only thing that makes it even slightly forgivable is they are fixing things
quite quickly, aren't they?
Where required within a couple of weeks.
It felt to me that Harlequins are balanced at a lower points cost, or as an addition to Eldari armies. Yeah, when you couldn't spam the shit out of them because you only had 1,000 points, say, they weren't that kind of oppressive.
The problem is the current trend and pushback against GW writing the current set of codices quite as powerful as they are. You're not going to see any difference in that for another 6 months, because that's the lead time in which it takes to write and test and balance these things.
Yeah.
So any decision they make to change that policy...
Well, I don't think it'll affect it till 10th.
Yeah.
I think exactly. I suspect that they've got the print and that locked in years before we actually see it.
Not on books. Models, yes. On books, it's a matter of like maybe 6 months or so.
Yeah, but they've got to then get shipped, and if you ship from China, you're looking at a 3-month lead time.
Yeah.
So you've got to get it in, you've got to get it printed, you've got a 3-month lead time. They want to release simultaneously around the world, so that 3-month lead time becomes closer to 6 to get to everywhere in the world.
Yeah.
I think it's a year.
Maybe from starting to write things, from actual submission of text to print. I'm happy with 6 months.
Anyway, so you haven't done anything because you've been playing too much Horizon.
Yeah, bottom line.
Fair enough.
And I've loved it, and I have no regrets. And on the subject of video games, John, have you seen the new WoW expansion video?
I did see it.
What did you think?
More excited about Wrath Classic, I think.
Yeah.
I like Wrath of the Lich King.
I stopped playing WoW early 2020 because I was bored at the end of BFA, and Shadowlands held no appeal to me. That Dragonflight expansion with the idea of dragon riding stuff and all that, I've started reinstalling it tonight.
Oh, okay. Cool. Let me know how you get on.
Yeah, we'll see.
If it sucks you in again.
Yeah, there's a good chance it will, but I'm terrified of it sucking me in and losing everything I have. So I might not let it. We'll see how it goes.
Fair enough.
Cool, that's me.
Okay.
Tony.
So here's me. I painted some custos.
Oh, wow. Custodes are really good. They're really powerful in the game right now. I understand they're like one of the top meta lists.
Yeah, I kind of started to finish like that Praetor that doesn't have OBSEC, and we didn't rate that highly beforehand.
I think that the natural order of Marines, or rather super soldiers that serve the Emperor, has been restored, with Blood Angels being number 1 in the Golden Armor.
I joked about it earlier, but yeah, definitely. If I went to a tournament tomorrow, I'd take my Blood Angels over my Custodes.
That's a nice gold, though. That's a very nice looking gold.
This would be a
Yeah,
perfect.
I'm quite pleased with how the gold come out on that.
How do you get the finish on that gold?
So it is a couple of paints. So that is, I started off with a base coat of Scale 75's Decayed Metal, which is a kind of very brownish metallic colour. But I've also added in some Cygor Brown contrast paint to that to make it really dark. Then I've built it up using a colour called Dwarf Gold, which is another scale colour paint. And then I've done a highlight with Elven Gold. But then what I've done is I've given it some shading and some depth to it using Druchii Violet.
Okay.
So there's some purple sprayed up from the bottom just to give a little bit of interest. Otherwise, it's a little bit dull. Then I've used some burnt umber oil paints to put some panel lining and add a bit of definition to things as well. And then I've matted the whole thing down with some ultra matte varnish. That's a bit complicated for a recipe, but yeah, that's how I do the gold for these guys. The Sanguinary Garden Blood Angels that I've done, I've tried to go with a really desaturated gold and a bit more of a greenish tinge. But for these guys, because they are the Emperor's golden bananas, I've wanted a really rich, warm gold. But I wanted that bit of purple in there to add a bit of just interest to it and a bit of contrast. Otherwise, it gets.
I still love those Jetbike models.
They're cool. I like them. The thing I'm most pleased about is the pink that I used for that guy's Mohican. Because I've now discovered my favourite / most dangerous paint that I've ever owned. And it's this Green Stuff World Fleur pigment. So it's powder, it's pigment. And you mix it with something to make it into a paint. But it is it spreads everywhere the moment you open the lid, like pigments do. And this lid is crap for pigments.
How much of it got
so
into your beer?
bright that it is deadly and it goes everywhere. But the colour is fantastic. I really like that. But yeah, so some Alaris got painted that aren't going to get used. Some troops have got painted that probably are going to get used. And Trajan Valoris and the Bike Captain got painted. Trajan's definitely going to get used. And yeah, I painted a feather like Kitten from TTS because, yeah, I love TTS.
Okay.
And that was that. That's what I did these couple of weeks.
That's nice.
Yeah, that's it. And I think that is it. That is us done.
Well, hey.
So we haven't said it yet, but if you liked this video and you like this style, then let us know in the comments. If you didn't like this style, then let us know in the comments as well.
Yeah.
If
you didn't like it, downvote the shit out of us.
Yeah, downvote it if you don't like it. Feel free. Like it if you did like it. Subscribe if you can be bothered. Click the bell icon if you actually want to hear from us.
Yeah.
Share with your friends. Stick it on. Someone asked if we share on Reddit and
all the usual promote stuff.
I don't know how Reddit works.
I've shared some of the
it's a forum website
on Reddit, but yeah,
it's not difficult.
So yeah, if anybody you think will benefit from it, let them know. We have got a Patreon. We're working on some rewards at the moment. We're looking for ideas on what to offer. So if you've got any good ones, again, let us know.
We're currently knocking about a possible army review idea as Patreon reward, maybe.
So that's on the cards. And if you've got something you want us to do, then let us know as well, because we're always looking for new ideas. We've done a lot of Mark episodes in a row, so we could do with a viewer submission. Actually, no, I'll tell you what we could do with. We do with a John submission.
Yeah, we could do with you two coming up with
absolutely
ideas
zero
harsh
ideas for this.
John, pressure. Yeah, you got nothing else going on in your life. Come on, weigh in here.
You lead one of these. But yeah, so if you've got any ideas of things you want, please let us know. I think
Whistling void there of John thinking how to defend himself.
I was going to say it's pretty late now, and I'm kind of exhausted with the kids today. So I feel like there was an idea in our Discord chat, and I will revisit it. But yeah.
But yeah, so let us know what you want. We've heard a couple of people have asked us about Grey Knights. I think that's somewhere on the cards. A few people have talked about Tyranids. It's a possibility. I have ordered the book.
Yeah, once Imperial Knights comes out, we're almost certainly
that,
getting that. Tony and I are going to pick that up. So there's
and I'm going to do Squats as well, because I know it'll annoy loads of people that got really salty that Squats are getting a release on our Discord, and that's the sole reason I'm doing it. So yeah, that's that then. I hope you've enjoyed the show.
Yeah.
I hope you've learned something, I guess, right?
Well, I haven't learned
or at least had a laugh.
There's a disclaimer at the beginning. If you learnt anything, it's entirely your own fault.
Mm-hmm. It is a pleasure as always doing these. So yeah.
Cheers, guys.
Have a good evening.
Good evening.
Bye-bye.